The content in this video is based on factual, real-life events and public records. All opinions expressed are for educational and documentary purposes only. Viewer discretion is advised, as some scenes may depict sensitive content. This video is intended for informative purposes and complies with YouTube's guidelines. Teal and amber light flicker against concrete. The sound of steel doors echoes, one after another, like a heartbeat deep inside the belly of two of America's most notorious penitentiaries, USP Terre Haute in Indiana and USP Victorville in California. At Terre Haute, the clock above the death chamber hums quietly, its second hand ticking towards something final. At Victorville, 2,000 miles away, a siren wails through the Mojave air, a coded signal, sharp and brief, before the yard falls silent. Two different prisons, two different worlds. Yet somehow, the same darkness breathes in both, the kind of silence that only exists when men have nothing left to lose. Inside these walls, stories don't unfold, they erupt. Behind the tattoos and orange jumpsuits are men waiting for either redemption or the reckoning they were promised. Some whisper their last words to the wind. Others carve messages into metal bunks, knowing no one outside will ever read them. But something connects Terre Haute and Victorville, something buried, unsaid, passed through coded letters and shared memories. One prison houses men marked for death. The other, men who've already died inside. And as the night deepens on both sides of America, the same question lingers. What happens when the system that's meant to contain evil starts to feed on it? If you enjoy real, gripping prison documentaries and true stories, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and share it with your friends and family. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss more shocking and exclusive content. The desert sun hit the razor wire like a flame on glass, turning everything white and blinding. Inmates moved in slow motion across the yard of USP Victorville, their orange jumpsuits glowing under the harsh light. Among them was Miles Carter, a man who had been transferred from USP Terre Haute only 3 days earlier. His forearms were covered in tattoos, faded symbols of old loyalties, some he wished he could forget. But inside Victorville, nothing stayed buried for long. Miles had seen violence before. Terre Haute was no playground. It was where men whispered about death row like it was a neighbor next door. But this new place carried a different kind of pressure. Here, it wasn't just about survival. It was about silence. There were eyes everywhere, guards, cameras, and inmates who traded information like currency. The morning had begun with an unusual quiet. No shouting, no sound of metal gates slamming, just a strange hum from the ventilation system. Miles noticed it right away. So did Eli Sanders, his new cellmate, a wiry man with tattoos that wrapped from his neck down to his wrists like veins of ink. Eli had been inside long enough to know when the air changed. "They're testing something again," Eli muttered, his eyes fixed on the ceiling vent. Miles frowned. "Testing what?" Eli didn't answer. He just leaned back on his bunk, one leg bouncing nervously, eyes locked on the narrow slit of sunlight spilling through the cell bars. It wasn't paranoia, it was instinct. Every man in Victorville felt it when something new was happening. By noon, the compound shifted. Movement stopped. Yard time was canceled without warning. Guards in dark tactical gear walked the corridors, silent, mechanical. No one spoke, but everyone knew this wasn't routine. From his cell window, Miles watched a group of inmates being escorted across the yard in single file. Each man was handcuffed, heads down. Their orange uniforms glowed against the dust, but what caught Miles' attention was the white tape wrapped around their wrists, marked with black letters and numbers. "What's the tape for?" he asked. Eli's face went cold. "Transfer prep," he said quietly. "Same thing they did before Terre Haute went on lockdown last year." The name hit Miles like a warning. Terre Haute, the last place he'd heard screams echoing from behind isolation doors, where stories of federal experiments and conditioning blocks passed through the air vents like ghost voices. That night, the entire block was ordered into full lockdown. Lights out at 8 p.m. No movement, no talking, no explanation. From his bunk, Miles stared into the dark, the faint glow of teal light leaking through the window bars. He could hear footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, deliberate. Metal trolleys rolling. Then, without warning, the power flickered. For 2 seconds, the entire block went black. Total silence. Then came the hum again, louder this time, vibrating through the walls. Eli sat up. "It's starting," he whispered. Miles didn't understand what it was yet, but deep down, something in him knew. This was not about discipline or control. This was about seeing how far a man could break before he shattered. When the lights came back, one thing had changed. The inmate in the next cell, Reyes, a man who always hummed blues songs before sleep, was gone. No noise, no fight, no warning. Just gone. Miles pressed his face to the bars and whispered his name. Nothing. Only the hum of the vents answered him. And in that moment, he realized something every man at Victorville and Terre Haute eventually learned. Sometimes, the worst things inside a federal prison don't happen in the open. They happen in silence. At USP Terre Haute, the walls are thick enough to swallow sound, and yet every clang of metal carries a weight that seeps into the mind. Isolation here is not just a policy, it's a presence. Inmates spend 23 hours a day locked inside their cells, and the 1 hour they're allowed outside is in a caged yard no larger than a single-car garage. Every step, every breath, and every echo of the closing cell door reminds them that their world has been reduced to concrete, steel, and time. Inside this silence, something begins to shift. The human mind, deprived of touch, connection, and sunlight, starts to fold in on itself. At USP Victorville, mental collapse often arrives quietly, not with screams, but with stillness. Some men stare at the wall for hours. Others speak to shadows or hum to themselves to remember the sound of a voice. Psychologists who've worked in Victorville's special housing unit describe it as watching men slowly disappear into themselves. Sleep deprivation, paranoia, and emotional detachment become normal, symptoms of a system built not just to confine the body, but to dismantle the spirit. Beneath this psychological decay lies an unspoken structure, the prison hierarchy. At both Terre Haute and Victorville, power is drawn along invisible lines of race and allegiance. White gangs, black groups, and Latino car alliances form the backbone of daily survival. Loyalty is enforced through fear, and neutrality is seen as weakness. Even a passing glance can ignite tension that brews for weeks before erupting into violence. To survive, every inmate must choose where to stand, even when every side feels like another form of captivity. But the toll doesn't stop with the inmates. The correctional officers, the men and women who walk these corridors every day, live under a constant shadow. At Terre Haute, reports of PTSD, insomnia, and emotional exhaustion are common. Many admit that when their shift ends, they don't really leave. The sound of metal doors closing, the sight of flickering fluorescent lights, it follows them home. One officer confessed, "You don't leave this place when your shift ends. It follows you." And then there's the punishment no one sees written in sentencing documents, the invisible punishment. It's the erosion of identity. Many prisoners at Victorville say they can't remember the sound of their own voices anymore. Days blur into weeks, and weeks into years. The system turns names into numbers, memories into habits, and dreams into nothing. Psychologists call it institutional detachment, the moment a man's sense of self dissolves completely into the machinery of confinement. Yet, in this hollow silence, a strange kind of clarity sometimes emerges. Between despair and routine, some inmates rediscover fragments of who they once were. One man at Terre Haute wrote, "This cell became my mirror. I hated what I saw, but at least I finally saw myself. In a world where time has no meaning and every hour feels the same, reflection becomes survival, and survival becomes redemption." If you enjoy real, gripping prison documentaries and true stories, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and share it with your friends and family. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss more shocking and exclusive content.